Hello, this is Jeff Heaton. Welcome to Applications of Deep Neural Networks with Washington University. This is Module 8, Kaggle Datasets, Part 3. This is where I introduce the Kaggle competition for this semester. And this semester is 2018 spring. So if you go to the class notes for Module 8 and you scroll to the bottom of this, you'll see the Kaggle project. So this is the recording for the spring 2018 semester. Now, I change the Kaggle competition every single time. It wouldn't be any fun if we had the same Kaggle competition every single time. So this is where you get to try your skills at building a neural network to predict data against your fellow classmates. You'll see the link here is the link to the current Kaggle competition. The previous Kaggle competitions stay out there as well, though. If we were to look at the previous semester one, it would simply take us to the one that I ran last semester. And if you go to the leaderboard, you can see the students that submitted. You can even see there was a Kaggle Master, so somebody who was not a student who had the rank of Kaggle Master who also jumped into the competition. So the people on here mostly are students, but sometimes you will have additional members of the community hop in and compete with the competition. So we're going to go ahead and look at spring 2018, and I'll give you a brief introduction to this one. If you click on the link, you'll be taken to this Kaggle competition. Now, it does say the Kaggle competition hasn't been launched yet. Only host and Kaggle admins can see it. By the time we get to the class, to the part of the class where we'll use this, I will have submitted it. But it's pretty much ready to go. So I designate which semester it's from, and what we're doing here, this is a generated data set, much like I did for the previous one. This data set is generated using a simulator that I have. So it's what we use to simulate market conditions for various things, but I set it up basically to simulate product prices. So here you're going to predict the price of office supplies. Now, if you see here, I have basically, like any Kaggle competition, there's several tabs that you can click on. There's some information here. If you can read the official rules and everything there. You can see the data here on the data tab. So train CSV, there is sample. Sample CSV is a sample submission file. You'll be using a submission file on this. Test is what you build your submission file from. So if you looked at test, it'll look just like train, except there are no outcomes. So you need to train your neural network or other model on train, and then evaluate it on test and submit your predictions. This is a regression, so you're trying to predict the price of each of these items. Now I give you a field descriptions for the file. The ID, the first column, is just the identifier. So when you send in when you send in your submission, the IDs need to match test. That's how it knows that you've created a proper submission, and it knows which row goes to which actual value. I give you the name of an item. I give you the manufacturer, the number of items in a pack. So if you have a 50 pack of markers, that would be 50. And the price reflects the entire pack. The weight of the pack, the height, length, and width, so the kind of dimensions of the box. And then the cost. This is the target. This is why. This is what you're trying to predict. We'll look at this file in just a second, but if we go to the leaderboard, there's nobody's entered yet. And I usually don't enter these, so that way we get to see how well the students do against each other. Winning the first, second, or third spot in the Kaggle doesn't really get you anything in the class other than just bragging rights amongst your fellow students. If you do ask me to write a letter of recommendation for you, that can be a very good story for me to tell. So just something to keep in mind, how high you were in the Kaggle rank. The rules are given here. So actually the rules are formatted a little bit incorrectly. They didn't read my HTML right. So, but you can still see what it's saying. But basically, it does talk about teams. In this competition, unlike the other assignments in this class, you are allowed to use teams. So you can team up with your fellow students. And that gives you, basically, the entire team will have one submission. Teams are an inherent part of Kaggle, so I very much allow them for this assignment. All members of the team will simply receive the same grade for submitting it. Now, for submitting this, you really just have to get reasonable output. It's not like it's very much like a Kaggle, so I am only looking at your data. You're only submitting your data, and you're submitting your data through Kaggle. So don't submit the only thing you need to submit to me in Blackboard is just your Kaggle name and a link to your profile page on Kaggle. That way I can see that you've submitted it and I can see what your score is, because you may use an anonymous name on here. That's perfectly valid. You do not need to use your actual name. You can use an alias. And if you have a team, the team will show up here and you can add people to the team. Once you start to submit, you'll see your submissions over on My Submissions. And by the way, the deadline on this competition is April 10th, 2018 at midnight, or at 11:59. Now be aware, this is in UTC, so this is the time over in England, basically. So you'll need to have submitted your final submission by 4/10/2018, usually around 5-6 o'clock in the evening here in the Midwest time zone. Now, submission-wise, you are limited to 10 a day. That's pretty typical in Kaggle. That's actually pretty many. Usually it's 5. And your number of scored submissions, so at the very, very end, it'll take your top 2, or if you tell it different ones, and it will submit, that's what your final score will be. Now, like we talked about in the course modules, Kaggles are evaluated using the holdout data set. So the scores that you see from students leading up into the end of the competition, those could change as a result of the final leaderboard. If you've overfit your data, you will usually fall on the final leaderboard. Let's take a look at the data to see what it looks like. So this is the train file. I have the ID. This is what is telling you which row each of these belongs to. The IDs that are in the test set are different than the IDs in the train set. The test set will look just like this. You'll have the same columns, but you just will not have the cost in the test set because you need to fill in the cost. So here you can see the items. ID probably will not have any predictive power. You need to keep the ID around so that you can submit back using it, but you won't get any predictive power out of it. Here you'll notice some of the data. So you'll have to decide how you want to encode these. Over here we have strictly numeric values. The name, you might be tempted to throw away the name, but be careful because you can probably extract some data out of the name that will be valuable and will give predictive power to your model. Manufacturer, likewise, don't throw it away. We definitely have data types that would handle a categorical value like this. You'll notice there's not too many manufacturers, so that gives you an indication of how you might use this. The other values like the pack size, the weight, the height, the dimensions, you might want to z-score these, or you might want to do some other sort of transformation of these. So that's the file. Both the training file and the test file look pretty similar. It's just that the test is not going to have the cost. Now when you submit this, you're just going to have ID and cost. You're going to estimate the cost for all of those values in your test data set. All right, this is the Kaggle competition for this semester. Good luck with this. If you have any questions, definitely post in Piazza or send me a link. If you're going to form teams, go ahead and do that. You will manage that entirely through Kaggle. Good luck with the competition.